set of leaders we have been having since the last 10 years enjoyed Nigeria. They were on scholarships, they were on free education. So why can't the present leaders from the 40 years ago transmit what they got from the first generation, from Awolowo, from Zik? Even at the point of Gowon, we still had something going. So this our present set leaders collapse those things and making us suffer. And they say we should not complain about suffer. There's a proverb in Africa that say you don't beat a child and tell him not to cry. Nigerians are crying because they are being beaten black and blue. A harsh economy everywhere. So saying those nice things, just like telling us, oh, don't say bad things about the dead, or don't use your mouth to pull down, talking about prophetic utterances. Please, let's reserve that for night vigils in the church, not for the real economic problems we're having.
Well, Mr. Igokwe, it's as if the song of lamentation is not yet over if you look at the front page of the Vanguard newspaper. But when you started your commentary initially, I couldn't miss out the point that you made about Nigeria, you growing as a father, but Nigeria not necessarily growing. Just yesterday, amid the celebration, my own 7-year-old said, Nigeria is like a grandma at 65. So is this grandma more sensitive, wiser at 65? Well, the answers appear to be on the front page of the Vanguard. Listen to this. Opposition leaders, others take Tinubu to task. The host of riders, Tinubu unmoved, uncaring amid hunger, bandit attacks. That's ascribed to former Vice President Atiku Abubakar. Nigeria failing under APC. That's the LP presidential candidate, Mr. Obi. If the worst is over, why are Nigerians still dying? That's coming from the new bride, ADC. We're hungry for food, not statistics. Of course, that's coming from where the night vigils that you talked about should be happening, the Christian Association of Nigeria. And lastly here, Nigeria's future bleak under leaders with entitlement mentality from the Anglican primate. Mr. Gwoke, over to you. Speak to these concerns.
Nobody can fault most of the statements from the different political parties and different, civil society organizations, and even from the religious groups. Anybody faulting that is either be hypocritical or just maybe an appointee of the government that defends anything, no matter how wrong it is. It is very clear that Nigerians, like the condition of the average Nigerian, is in a very dire strait. And instead of one of the problems I always find is why the government officials, instead of listening to feedback mechanism in every leadership structure is very, very important. Because communication, I'm a communication expert. I have my doctorate in communication, so I can lecture on communication. What we say is that some communication is cyclical. It is not linear. So you don't do top bottom and then expect everybody to swallow everything. So it's a cycle. So you push out your message, there's a medium you push out, you have an audience. The audience, you are expecting a feedback. And from the feedback is what you now use to reorganize in effective leadership and take action. But what we found now is that once you speak, you not tell me, oh, you don't have a right. They wash you down, they dress you down, they abuse you. That's not going to stop Nigerians from because they say he who wears the shoe knows where it pinches. So if somebody say, oh, my legs, my shoe is pinching, and I have issues with my leg, I tell you, don't say it again. But it doesn't remove the pain. So the person will keep on saying it until it finds a solution to it. And so it's so pedestrian that when people complain, you say, oh, you are opposition, or you don't like the president, or you are not a progressive. What is the definition of progressive? You don't just bring yourselves together and call yourself progressive because you want to use the cliche. Anybody can ascribe any cliche or adulation to himself. What we are saying is that all the statistics, all the numbers do not add up to economic reality on ground. So make it add up. Nigerians are very simple people, actually. We don't really need very sophisticated things. All we need is give us access to health, give us access to education, give us the roads, make agriculture very easy to embark on, employ people, bring back production, let there be employment, and then bring back this adverse rates that we're having. Bring back the subsidy, because even Europe and all these big countries do subsidy. Instead of killing subsidy, clean up subsidy instead of removing it. So there's a lot of paradoxical economic policies going on. The government is not in the capitalist venture. The government is not capitalism. The government is not supposed to be in business. So they are overtaxing everybody, trying to run government as a business. It doesn't work that way. The work of government is to create the enabling environment for business, and that's what we should focus on. But that is not what this government is doing. Government is acting as a player in the capitalist economy, as if they are a company or a parastatal organization. They should work down on that and see how they can be more welfareist, because the Constitution says the primary responsibility of government is the welfare and citizen and security of its citizens.
Well, Dr. Igboke, a lot of people have described the president as a tax collector. Yesterday, he took the moment of Independence Day to speak to that, saying that the new tax laws, not to increase the burden on people, but to widen the tax net, to widen the base for national growth. So that is still clearly the elephant in the room, and a lot of people are still unsure of what to expect come January the 1st next year, when those laws come into full swing. But let's take a look at New Telegraph newspaper quickly, Dr. Igboke. Yes, most of the dailies have advertorials on them, naturally, because it's the day after Independence Day. So in case you're wondering why it's a slimmer front page, it's a lot of advertorials. But the story that might catch your attention, perhaps, is either the Pengassin strike being suspended to resume without notice, or the Senate President to President saying, get ready to receive more opposition governors into the APC. Your choice, Dr. Igboke. Don't forget there's oil prices falling to 60 low as Nigerian crude price declines as well.
Well, the Pengassin Dangote crisis is something that is avoidable. But, in this country, we were always reactionary rather than being preventive. If these things were well planned, even Nupeng itself, I don't know why Nupeng was sleeping, or Pengassin and all these groups. You saw a refinery coming up. You saw a refinery kickstart. You knew where they were building the refinery. Pengassin would have at that stage engaged the management and said, look, see what the law says in this refinery you are setting up. This is where we want to come in. This is this is this. The refinery has started, all those things. You allowed them to employ people to work, and so these unions should be able to have been proactive about these things instead of allow things to happen before they now react. It's a typical Nigerian thing. And also, the Constitution of Nigeria guarantees freedom of association, and there's nothing wrong with your group belonging to unions. It's a fundamental right. But to now say they shouldn't belong to unions, when we have always known that unions work even in private sectors. If you go to the banking sector, insurance sector, if you go to even the oil and gas sector and the rest. But what some Nigerian schools of thought are saying that the unions have excesses. So these excesses, if there are, and I assume there are, should be challenged maybe in courts and in other mediation issues. But I think mediation failed. That is why even they went to strike, and then they're called off and suspended and all those things. This kind of thing is where you can employ mediation, negotiation, and conciliation. And when you do that, then we can avoid all this brouhaha that is happening. And then I think Nigerians should also wake up about expatriate quota in employment, where a company just wakes up and wants to replace Nigerians with expatriates. Without it's actually a slap on our face, especially work that Nigeria can do. Most countries in the world don't do those kind of things. And you don't allow people just reduce your own citizens to second-class citizens. So Dangote has its own fault. Dangote refinery has a very serious problem in their hands, and they need to solve that. But without grandstanding, this same thing with Pengassin. They also need to look strictly into because there are some accusations that the Dangote refinery came up with that suggest that these things were not, that the Pengassin's action were not altruistic, that they were for personal gains. So those things have to be interrogated. And then we have to now, see where to find a common ground so that we don't have fuel scarcity. That's what Nigerians are concerned about. Every other thing, I think, is just between the union and the rep. And I don't know why Pengassin should even accept the fact that this staff should be posted out of the refinery. That means that they have been defeated, if that is the case. But unionism should be accepted, and people should not be pushed out for joining what they have rights of associations.
Well, Dr. Buke, very important points you made there. And yes, we'll be having the TUC president join us to speak to some of these issues from an insider's perspective. But we have to thank you so much. And let me just say happy birthday to you. I think it's not a coincidence that you share the same birthday with Nigeria. So happy birthday to you one more time, Dr. Ambrose Igboke, Chairman Guild of Public Affairs, Analyst of Nigeria, and Media Consultant. We appreciate your time on the program.
Thank you for having me on the show.
Well, so that's a look at the front pages for you this morning. But we're getting started with the youth angle to President Bola Tinubu's Independence Day broadcast yesterday. While he paid a lot of attention to the economy, about 35% of his speech was on the economy. The youths also got their own fair share of that speech yesterday, with a total of about 13% being allocated to them. So what in that speech will resonate with Nigerian youths? Well, we'll be having a panel of these youths joining us on the program today. By the way, it's been said that youth is not just age. If you're youth at heart, you're also welcome to this conversation. So that's where we're headed to next in a moment. So stay with us. We'll be right back.